Hello, everyone, and
Woo!
welcome to. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paddles and Bars, where I'm being sabotaged 5 seconds in. This is the show where we cover all things geeky. Be sure to like and subscribe. Last week, we, to my frustration, covered the Dragon Ball saga, and as punishment for my lack of enjoyment in said saga, Patrick forced me to watch. Patrick, what did we watch?
We watched Lupin the Third in the Castle of Cagliostro, which is Hayao Miyazaki's directorial debut before he founded Studio Ghibli.
Cool.
Did
So
you
I will
enjoy it?
say, after watching Dragon Ball having to suffer and realizing the anime was a mistake and being made to watch this, I will say my review is 10 out of 10, no notes.
Isn't it fantastic?
It's
Right?
fantastic.
Isn't it
so
fucking
fun.
awesome?
It's just, I mean, we'll get into it, but great protagonist. He's just charming. He's funny. He's good, but like a lot of the time, he's good in spite of his plans.
Yeah.
He stumbles into a lot of situations. Great supporting cast. I loved literally every character in it. Great villains. Great foil in the Interpol detective. I'm guessing you probably watched subtitles, but I watched the dub, and it was actually a really good dub. It was a really good American voice cast. I really enjoyed it.
No, I actually did watch the dub because I have a lot of nostalgia for this particular dub because of when I saw it in my life. Also, interesting side note: the voice of Lupin in this is done by David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake, who also wrote X-Men 2. He's a fucking all-arounder, this guy. He's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, like, I think one of the things that I always think is absolutely, so trivia-wise, the most amazing thing about this film is they made this movie in 4 months.
Wow.
And, like, the idea that you could produce something this good in it, like, you know, movies take years. All of them take years. It's insane. Even relatively simple seeming things takes, even like low budget horror films take a year. Yeah. And like the idea that is
what's crazy is that a lot of these films that take years, especially animated films, I hate saying things like this because I know that animators work incredibly hard and it's incredibly time consuming, and nowadays in every industry with any form of animation there is crunch. But I do see a lot of modern studios put out stuff now and I'm like, really? This took you a year? It looks garbage. But like for you to say that this took 4 months, it looks gorgeous. I love it. I love the style of it. I love the colors. I love the pace, like the movement. Every character has their own body language and distinct visual, the way they move, the way their eyebrows. It's great. It's fantastic.
And it's got like the movement is just wonderful. Like there's little bits like whenever he jumps over something and his legs just stretch so far apart, and it accompanies it with that little kind of boink noise every time he jumps off something. And I'm all like, I don't know why, but it works so well. And like there's that bit where he slides down a roof and then he just starts running because it's all he can do to stop himself from just falling all the way down. And like one thing I noticed when I watched it, and I know this is like a really weird thing to note, but like, man, I love how fast their legs move when they're running. I feel like in loads of things, and loads of animated things, like their legs look like they're just not quite going fast enough for the speed the character's moving at. But in this, everyone's legs are just like pumping away all the time. It's so fucking cool.
It bounces back and forth between grounded. It has like grounded moments where it obeys the physics of a real world, but then it just remembers, oh wait, we're a cartoon, we can do Looney Tune stuff. So people's legs move at 30 miles per hour in one spot. There's suddenly more ninjas in the room than there should ever be allowed to be. Like the rules of the world are whatever they need to be in that scene. And it's weird because in any other context that would set my nitpicky nerd brain off, but I just loved it. It's just, there's such a fun spirit to this movie.
And sometimes they do that. Sometimes they do that Wile E. Coyote thing where a gap opens up between them, and then they like try and stay up in the air, and it's just so silly. But then, like fundamentally, it's a story about Interpol tracking a thief and a money laundering, like a money counterfeiting scheme, which is such a wild take for a what you know what in a lot of ways seems so silly and like carefree and joyful. It's just like what I really love is how the pace switches between there are moments in this that are so high energy. There's like one thing I love about Miyazaki's work is the crowds. So like when people are like crowds of people clash with each other and then they push against each other, and then you get these close-up shots of people just like squeezed in between a bunch of other people. But then there's moments like where he's just looking at a building and it's so slow and so serene. Like all of the background art is so beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Like it's one of those movies,
and like just light hits it, and you get this little glimmer and these glints of light, and it's
the use of light. There's a shot where Clarice is looking out of the window, and then she sees the clouds cover the moon, and on her face there's the outline of the window pane cast by the moon, and then as the cloud covers it, it dims away, and it's so good. Like the level of animation talent on display is unreal. Really and like the just little things like the way that the cars fall apart when they're crashing. Like it's not like one of those movie worlds where the cars are reinforced. Like the cars crash twice and then just like bits are falling off of doors going here and there. Like there's a bit at the start where he drives through a forest and just like branches are coming in through the windscreen, and one just smacks him in the face and he just kind of carries on. It's so cool.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like, so one thing that you'll hear me praise on this podcast a lot, because I really respect it, because it's not easy to. People who are good at it make it seem easy, but efficient and economic storytelling.
Yeah.
And this, from the opening scene, I'm not a person who's aware of the character or the franchise. This is my first exposure to him or anyone else in the cast. But within a minute, you're like, okay, he's efficient. He plans properly. He has a right-hand man who respects him and follows his lead, but the right-hand man is also accomplished in his own right and has a set of skills that are vital. So it does all this stuff really quickly, and you're like, okay, I know who these people are, and I know what the stakes are. Bang, gets into it.
Yeah, and like in fact, the only thing is that Lupin's such a fucking Mary Sue. Like he is so good at everything. He's always just being all like, and also I've perfectly counterfeited this ring, and it's like, how, man? But what I really love about that actually with the counterfeit ring scene is that if you look before in the scene where the ninjas first attack them, he's like pouring metal into a mold. I assume to make the counterfeit ring. Yeah, and it's just like it's so neat. I love that it's got kind of a. It's not a spy movie, but it's got like a 60s James Bond vibe to it with the kind of the gadgets and the... I love that it takes place in a world...
He meets basically falls head over heels for him, or has already fallen head over heels and is trying to get over him.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I think Fujiko's a really interesting character. Like the fact that she's all like, nah, don't fall in love with him. It sucks. It's awful falling in love with Lupin. You want to just steer clear. And yeah, like, I love the kind of loose... So, like, Inspector Zenigata's after him all the time. He's his kind of, like, long-term foil, always chasing after him. But then, at the same time, they kind of have this easy kind of, like, chemistry between them. And at the end, when he chases off after Lupin, he looks really happy. And the caretaker guy is all like, man, he really cares about Lupin, doesn't he? And it's like, yeah, he does. Like,
he doesn't know how to say it, essentially.
Yeah, like, they're like... Yeah, they're like the best kind of... It's like, do you remember that Spider-Man comic where Peter's fighting the Green Goblin and then him and Norman end up just sitting down and having a pizza together? And they're like, you know what? You're probably the closest person to me in the world. Like, we've spent years so deeply entwined in each other's lives. You know more about me than anybody else does. Yeah. And it's like that where, like, sometimes these rivals can become closer than friends are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because I don't know if you ever watched or read any of it, but there was the Superior Spider-Man run where Doc Ock's head was in Peter's body. And for a long time, he was just saying insane stuff like, why don't we just kill all the villains? Let's just kill all the villains. That would be a lot easier. And everyone's just like, Peter's being a bit weird, but no one clocks. It's only Norman who was like, there is no way you are the same person. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
He sees it straight away. And then, like, when Peter eventually gets back in his body, they meet up again. And obviously, Norman's just like, well, this is whoever this imposter is. And he says something to the effect of, like, you understand that you're never going to be a hero. And then Peter says, at least I'll suffer the indignity of wearing a man purse. And Norman just looks at him like, it's you. And it's like, they're so intertwined that he takes that one line and he's like, damn it, you're back.
Yeah. And I love that idea, that kind of that feeling of like, and it's like you said, like one thing that this really brought home to me is that like Man, that era, like, like Indiana Jones or whatever, I don't know what the catalyst was for the movie industry and society becoming so obsessed with fucking origin stories,
Hmm.
so obsessed with where did this person come from and how did they get here. But like, there's something about a film that starts off with a fully formed character,
Yeah.
catches you up to who they are, and then doesn't, like, Lupin doesn't. I mean, he gets like a small amount of character development, but fundamentally he starts and ends this film in the same place, getting
Yeah.
chased by the police because he's a criminal, and
Yeah.
like. And it's just not really. It's kind of like a Mad Max thing where the
You don't
story
really
is
need to
about
know
the.
it.
What'd you say?
You don't really need to know, like with Mad Max, you don't need to know where he came from or
Yeah,
who. You can
you
just enjoy the adventure. That's what it is.
and it's more about the people that he meets. Like the people who get character development are the people who are part of this adventure, and
Hmm.
he's this kind. It's like Indiana Jones. It's like he's this static character, and what's exciting is what's happening around him. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's something that the movie industry and the animation industry and stories in general recently have just
It's so
completely
interesting you said
lost.
that because I saw two tweets today that really resonated with me. One was talking about Ahsoka and basically saying how it's so sad that we've just now fallen into this trap where these stories basically exist to congratulate people for having known Wikipedia articles, you know. And it's almost
Mm.
masturbatory because these franchises aren't about anything other than themselves. They're not telling stories. Star Wars is about Star Wars. It's not about the characters or
Yeah.
storyline. And then the second thing was a post that had four random screenshots from Seinfeld. And I've never been a Seinfeld fan, but I did like just reading these screenshots. And it was about Kramer. And these four particular screenshots are just random things that have been sprinkled in over the seasons and then they're never spoken about again. So, for instance, someone calls their parents and they're like, wait, you spoke to Kramer? And the parents say, yeah, Kramer calls us every week. And it's never mentioned again. And
Yeah.
it's just little things like that. But there's enough world building. They those little lines here and there are all you need. You don't need an entire episode dedicated to that idea. That line here and there is enough to build the character. It's enough to fill this world. It's enough to make these lives seem lived in and these people seem like real, actualized people.
And I've said it before on Star Wars, but it's amazing to me how much more interesting the Clone Wars were when they were a single line spoken by Obi-Wan than
Yeah,
when they showed me what they were. Like
yeah,
like the ideas that it conjured that phrase conjured in my mind was so much more interesting. It's like all those jokes about how when they did a Blade Runner they do a Blade Runner prequel and they'll show us the Tannhauser, all the things that he lists when he's talking about the
yeah,
most beautiful things he's seen, and they'll show us them because obviously, and it's like everything is obsessed. Like Rogue One, isn't it? Like the Rogue
yeah,
One. Hey, remember this from Star Wars? Here's where it came from. Hey, remember this thing that you saw before? Here's its origin. It's like I don't fucking care.
yeah.
Tell
I've,
me a
I've, I've
new
bitched about it before.
story.
I've bitched about it before, but one of the most upsetting discussions I ever had, I was at Comic Con and we were all doing our own pitch off of things we'd love to see or directors we'd love to see. And someone said, they need to show us what happened to Natasha and Clint in Budapest. No, it's a good line of dialogue. It doesn't need to be a franchise.
It's more interesting if it's not told to us. And that's the
Yeah,
thing, is that your imagination will do more work with that than they could do with $100 million. And
exactly.
that's why I think that, like, and going back to, that's one of the things, like going back to, we've been watching quite a lot of stuff from like that. This is from like 1979 and like obviously Terminator's from like the early 80s, and like going back to those old films, it's like
You
you
know,
said,
it being from the 70s, it looks so cool as well.
it looks so
Everyone
good.
just
Yeah.
looks cool.
They all look so fucking cool. I think that all the time though. Like I was watching something. Oh, I was watching when me and Beth were watching One Tree Hill. There was an episode where they had to go to a thrift store because they had no clothes, and they all had to
Hmm.
wear like 70s outfits. And I was all like, "Man, they all look so cool. Man, like everybody looks so cool in like a purple velour suit. Man, like
Yeah.
everybody should be." And yeah, there's just so many nice details in this, like little pieces of animation. The bit where he's on fire and the samurai guy cuts his suit off him is
Yes.
just the coolest thing in the whole fucking
I
world.
don't even think he even looked at him as well. He just like does
Yeah,
this one swift movement and then the clothes fly off. It's
yeah.
genius.
And there's so many like I love its complete disregard for time. It's all like, yeah, they're all driving 60s cars and they've all got what look like 60s 70s firearms, but there are laser guns. Sure, you know what I mean? Like he has the most physics defying grappling hook in the entire world, but like it doesn't matter. It's just not about that. Like it's such a pure adventure film.
It really
Like
is.
they are going to do something, and it switches between moments of high energy and low intensity, and like there's just little that clock tower bit at the end, like when they're climbing on all the moving gears, is just so fucking cool. Like
Yeah,
I can't, like when I was watching it, I was just all like this, what would it take to come up with this in your imagination and then
yeah.
draw it in a way that doesn't look completely stupid?
And it's funny
Like,
because contrasting what we were talking about with Dragon Ball, where a big problem I have with a lot of anime is I find it very icky and like women are very sexualized and the men are all
mm,
pervert. And there's a start, there's a moment like I could say, I guess it might be the midpoint where he's asked what he wants. Does he want riches or a reward? And he's like, no, the reward will be rescuing you. And in any other franchise, there might be a cynical twist where he actually was looking for something else or he got something else. And no, that's it. He just wants to rescue this person. And at the end, this person has developed romantic feelings for him. And he remembers a kind of extended relationship to her that he didn't know he had. And he's just like, no, I see you. I'm a big brother to you, and I'll always look out for you that way. And it's just so wholesome. He's like a really nice,
yeah.
wholesome hero.
And it's like I think from timeline wise, she's 19 because it was 10 years ago that he met her and she was 9 years
Yeah.
old then. And he's like, from the looks of it, he's like 30.
Yeah.
So like even then, like him, if at the end the 30-year-old man made out with the 19-year-old, it's not like as disgusting as a lot of things that we regularly
Not
see in
great,
Western
no.
movies. You know, it's not
Yeah.
great, but because he's had that relationship with her when she was a kid, he's like, no, it's not like that for me. You're like a little sister to me, and
Yeah.
it's just like, and I kind of love that. Like when I started watching it, I had this moment where I was all like, they're not going to make out, are they? Because
Yeah.
that doesn't feel.
Because that's my perception of a lot of anime. I was like, I was enjoying this so much, please don't ruin it. And then he literally just like, nope, I'm gonna look out for you like a big brother. I'm there whenever you need me, but you don't want someone like me to have that kind of relationship with you. I just loved it. I just
Yeah,
loved it.
and it's also it's got this kind of like genuinely like, I know you don't want to sound like a fucking boomer, but like it's got this kind of like chivalrous romantic thing going
Yeah.
on where it's not overtly sexual and it's not creepy. It's about, and people love each other, but in like a kind of a 50s adventure movie way where they go, "Oh,
Yeah.
I love you." And it's not like and yeah, and there's so much of it. That, oh man, that bit where they're in her tower, and then the ninjas come in and they just like scuttle to the side like crabs in a circle around him. Like that's just so weird. Like I have no idea how that choice was made.
So there were, like I said before, there are nitpicky parts where I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But I honestly love it so much I didn't care. So, like for instance, there's a moment, and the funny thing is, this could be corrected with a line of dialogue. One of the ninjas says that he's received word that his clan was like unsuccessful when it came to killing Lupin, right? And then he looks on his back and he has a note. Now, he shouldn't have the note if he wasn't there. I'll be honest with you,
Yeah,
though. I don't care. There's a
no,
bunch of lines like that in the film where I'm like, oh, that's so close to making sense. But also, I don't care. I'm having so much fun that I genuinely don't care.
yeah, the idea that Lupin's such a dick that he would stick a note on the back of a fucking like he stuck this note to the count on the back of one of the assassins, being all like, "Hey, motherfucker, I'm gonna steal your shit," and it's just like
Yeah.
it's just
Even business
such.
cards and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, the fact that he's just completely, he's not at all like, yes, I must be stealthy because I'm a thief. He's all like, I'm here, here's
Yeah.
my fucking name. And yeah, and it's like little, like, also, like, like we were saying about James Cameron films, like, everybody in this has so much personality. Like, when they meet the groundskeeper at the start and he's all like, you guys have no respect for this place, fuck off. And it's just like, he's just like unnecessary. And then later on, he's nice to them and he's all like, well, the dog liked him. So,
Yeah.
I trust
Like,
them now.
like with Lupin's second in command, there is like he loves him and he's loyal. There's a weariness in some of the line delivery where it's like,
Yeah.
I know all your tricks. So like for instance, when they're talking to the groundskeeper, and he's like, "Okay, so you knew this was the royal castle the whole time. You knew she was a
Yeah.
princess." It's like, I know this is what you do. Just stop doing it. Just tell me that, like, plan instantly. I don't need to be kept in the dark all the time.
Yeah, I also I love that bit where Lupin sits down and he's overlooking this beautiful lake at sunset, and it's this really kind of melancholy moment. And then Jigen comes over and just puts him in a variety of wrestling holds, and he's just like bending him to these angles that are completely impossible. And it's like, yeah, it's just so fun. Yeah. Every second of it is so much fun to watch, and like the animation
might not resonate with you this much, but when the opening theme starts, I realized this has been sampled in a bunch of rap songs.
Of course it has. Yeah, really in good. Fairness, one thing that I always find amazing is that like the frequency with which I'll be listening to hip hop and there will just be anime samples is so high. Like it's unbelievable. Like there's such a, and it's interesting because there's such a kind of deep crossover there, and yet it's like they literally, it's like when I buy a t-shirt that's got something from an anime on, but it doesn't say the name of it, so that only real fans will spot it. Do you know what I mean? And like there's this level amongst the hip hop community where they are all referencing Dragon Ball Z and stuff, but they're not saying it out loud. They're just being all like, if you know, you know. You know what I mean? And I just love that so much.
It's funny, last week we were talking about battle rap, and there's a guy called Mike P, who's a very good performer. He's very funny. And he does lots of intricate wordplay and really amazing metaphors. But the thing that always gets a response is, so like, for instance, he went against this guy who was rapping about, I'll do this to you with my gun and blah, blah, blah. And he basically had this battle where he was like, you know, you can do whatever with your gun, but can you do it? You can. And the crowd went insane. And then like immediately after that, the guy had a rebuttal, but then Mike P came back and said, I can't believe that you thought you were a match for me. And the crowd lost it. And you know, all these like thugs in like hoodies and Timberlands, but like the minute they hear a Dragon Ball Z or a Street Fighter reference, they lose their mind. So yeah, it's just so funny how symbiotic that relationship is.
Yeah, it really is. And like, I just kind of like, I really love that like there's such a deep connection to so many things. Like the thing is that this is Miyazaki's first directorial film. Like he did a TV show before this called Panda Go Panda, which is about a little girl who, it's very, in fairness, it feels like a kind of a prototype Totoro. It's like about a little girl who makes friends with the big weird thing, and then they hang out together. It's really funny. So like she's like living alone because a flood has separated her from her family. And this panda is like this massive panda, and he's got this deep man voice, and then he's just all like, well, I guess I'll have to be your mum. And then he just like starts looking after this little girl, and he's got like an apron, and he's cooking dinner and stuff. And like, but Panda Go Panda's great, but it's that and this. What's interesting is that they're the two things that Miyazaki did before he kind of proved himself enough to write his own movies. So they belong to other people. Like Panda Go Panda is owned by another studio, and obviously this is part of like a franchise. This is a part of a long-running franchise. It's actually very tonally different to all the other Lupin stuff I've ever seen, to be honest. It feels more like a Miyazaki film than a Lupin thing, but like it's interesting because this has got some elements. So like this is the only Miyazaki directed film where the main character is a man. In everything, I think, aside from maybe The Wind Rises, but like in almost all of his films, the protagonist is female. So it's interesting seeing how he he's taken this character who is like, there are moments in this where Lupin's a bit like, hey, when are you getting off later on? But like, it's not like, I don't know, it doesn't feel filthy and gross like a lot of like the stuff in Dragon Ball did.
In that scene, like, I think she references someone who's a womanizer, and he says, I've also got representation as a womanizer. So I think he's poking fun at it a bit, and you do get the sense that he has hurt people in the past, but he doesn't come across like a terrible person.
No, and for somebody who's essentially like, because the other thing is, it's like you were saying, like he's good in this, but like morally, he is literally like a criminal. Like when we first, the opening sequence is him robbing a casino, and it's just like there's
and
just
also he
so
does stumble onto the rescuing part because his initial plan was to steal the equipment so he could counterfeit the money himself.
yeah,
So,
absolutely, yeah. Like he's not there for good. And in fairness, at the end, when they find out what the treasure is, he's all like, "Well, I can't carry this, so I'm out of here. Like I gotta go
I was gonna say,
steal some
when they
shit."
find out about the ending, it does kind of seem like, because you know there's that long running thing where in a lot of the Indiana Jones movies, if he just hadn't interfered, everything would have been fine. Like, for instance, the Nazis would have found the Ark, they would have stared into it and melted anyway. So, like, he
Yeah,
doesn't need to be there. You almost get this feeling with this is like if Lupin hadn't foiled the king and the king had somehow found it, had been able to solve the riddle himself, he would have just been like, oh, it's an underwater city. I can't do anything with this. I'll just go back to counterfeiting.
I mean, maybe he would have destroyed it, although you know what I mean. Like, I
Yeah,
think the point is that it's like the phrase "it's a treasure for all of humankind" is, I think, really sweet. And that's the
yeah.
thing is that, like, again, there's like just a degree of earnestness and optimism to this that I find so deeply charming. And it's something that along with presenting us with a fully formed character, modern media has this kind of aversion to being like cheesy. It has
Yeah.
this it's like like the cardinal sin is saying something nice and really meaning it. So you have to everything has to have a quip or a joke.
Kind of really down on. Well, I mean, there's many things I'm really down on, but with the MCU, and you know, the thing I really think of is, I don't know if you remember the joke from Age of Ultron where Tony swears and then Captain America says language, and everyone rips
Yeah.
him for it for 10 minutes. And it's like, why is that a bad thing? That he's has like values and moral, like that's literally who the character is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I
And
think that's like, in fairness, I do prefer Ultimate's Captain America. I love Ultimate's Captain America so much. Well, he's not an edgelord though. He's just a man from the 40s. That's the thing, is that if you woke a man up from the 40s, some of his regular attitudes would seem just disgusting. Like it's like that bit where he's all like, there's no way you're a colonel in the military. You're black." And it's just like, and it's horrible.
So you said that because whilst you were absent from the podcast, my brother co-presented an episode with me, and he said Captain America would absolutely be black. He said if you defrost this, it would absolutely be racist. He's like, if you defrosted this guy from the 40s, and he's like, you want me to take orders from this guy? Like,
yeah,
no, I'm not doing that.
Of course he would. And yeah, like what I really love in Ultimates is that thing where Captain America's like trying to be what he considers to be gentlemanly, and all the women are all like, "Dude, this is so creepy and overbearing. Like, why are you behaving like this?" And he's all like, "I'm being a gentle," and he's got real like incel vibes. And I really, I think that take on Captain America is really fun. But yeah, so we're about
the whole universe.
So we're about halfway through the podcast, which means it's time for a message from our sponsors. Yeah.
Here we go. How long did this take you?
Are you attending a gathering of friends? Do you require an accompaniment to dinner? What beverage is ideal for when sport ends? Fanta.
Oh God, I've just remembered.
And also a good way to celebrate the winner. Fanta, Fanta, a cool orange drink that shops in Dow. Fanta, Fanta, it's not just for Nazis now.
Oh my gosh.
Fanta, it's not just for Nazis.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. I just like I finished
the opening scene and I was like, how long did he spend on this? This is insane.
I finished that last night and I watched it like 3 times and I was just crying. I was just crying with laughter.
All of their backs, like it's such an insane amount of energy and effort. I have no words.
I'm so proud of that. I think that's the funniest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
I think it is. I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, I can't remember what DVD it was, but I bought the DVD when I was with you, and this is this most insane thing to me, that like I think I spent the entire day with you. I must not have left your side other than to maybe go to the toilet for a couple of seconds. And when I got home, I opened the DVD to watch it, and you had replaced the official, like the insert they do where they're like, you wouldn't steal a car, would you? And you'd like drawn this crudely drawn, it was like a kaiju of the devil that was like, if you pirate this movie, you're helping the devil rape children, and you wouldn't do that, would you? It's like, when did he have time to do this? This is he was with me when I bought the DVD, and I haven't left. Like, I just, to this day, I don't understand how you did it, but it's like, yeah.
I mean, it's completely feasible.
The thing that you've done, so
it's completely feasible that I'd been carrying that around for a while, looking for an opportunity to slip it into one of your DVDs. Like that's the kind of thing. But yeah, no, I think the thing is that generally what happens is that I come up with an idea and I'm all like, oh, that's funny, and then I have to execute it within like a week. Otherwise, I just lose interest, and I'm all like, yeah, whatever. Like by the time I was editing the end of that last night, I was already a little bit like, I've got an idea for the next one. And I was kind of like, in my mind, I was a bit like, oh, how am I going to accomplish that? But yeah, like I have to just do it now. Otherwise I just lose focus. Before we move on to other stuff, I just wanted to say, I want to make just a list of things about the Castle of Cagliostro that animation wise are unbelievable. So I mentioned the cars, obviously, the gunshots, like the way that the guns look like when they're coming, the bullets look like when they're coming from the guns, the explosions when they're dropping those grenades on the roads, the way that the smoke and the explosions look is unbelievable. The water, when they jump off the clock tower and splash into the water, it's just amazing. And there's just so many of those things. I love that when the bad guys fall through I like the little registered trademark, especially. I love that when the bad guys fall through the trapdoor, they try and stop themselves. And when he falls through the trapdoor, he stands stock still, arms folded, because he knew he was going to fall through the trapdoor, because he's just that guy.
Is the thing. So that I hate that trope in most spy media, that he got captured because he meant to get captured. But with Lupin, it's so charming. I love it. And there's also a thing where, like, he keeps his composure amongst everyone else. And then it's when he's by himself, he's like, I'm falling down the roof, I'm panicking. And it's like, I like that. Like, it gives him this, it just rounds the character out a bit more to me. That you can see that some of it is actually a front. Like, he's super cool, but he's improvising a lot of the time, and he doesn't want people to know that. But when he's by himself, he's like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, and he's like, he's always on his own, he's always fucking things up and half-arsing them. But yeah, then as soon as, except for Jigen, when he's in front of other people, he's always so cool. That bit where he gets pulled down the halfway down that waterfall and then tries to swim back up, and it's so long, he's just swimming as hard as he can, and he almost makes it, and then he loses it. And like, also, like little...
We talk about, like, this happens in a lot of Disney movies where the villain actually has like a horrible death. That's a quite horrible villain death.
Yeah, it's really horrible. Yeah, the squelching noise is particularly unpleasant. Like, it's also funny because, like, he was absolutely going to go to prison for his counterfeiting. That bit where Zenigata's all like, hey, let's go down here. I think that's where Lupin went. And then he gets the news to follow, and he's all like, oh my god, a giant counterfeiting ring. I was just doing it. And it's just like, it's so over the top.
I love that one of the government officials is like, yeah, we can't cover this up. I love that line. It's so good.
Oh, we're never going to be able to cover this up. I thought what I thought was wild was that scene where he goes to Interpol, and like there's all those mildly racist caricatures of people from different countries, and then but then easily the most upsetting caricature is the Japanese guy, which is wild when it's a film made by Japanese people, right? Yeah. I suppose in the same way that you and me might be all like, oh yeah, we can do a really offensive caricature of a British person, because like we're British. I suppose that maybe that's like they just felt okay doing that.
Be like they're very intelligent, and they know that specifically here in the West, we can only really understand certain depictions of certain other nations based on the caricatures we've seen.
Yeah,
you know, it's like how most Americans just think every one of us is either "Hello, Mary Poppins" or "Good day to you," and they think that
Yeah.
we're all just teacups and red telephone. So they probably knew that selling this internationally, that scene might not read unless everyone is the most extreme caricature version of themselves, especially back in the 70s.
What I really love as well is that the fact that it's clearly set in like Europe. And I assume that Zenigata is supposed to be, although his name is Zenigata, it seems like he's supposed to be like American or whatever. But everybody is just drinking and eating instant ramen all the time, which obviously was just not a thing in the West until relatively recently. But like those little things. It's also another classic movie where, man, is everybody smoking in this? Like they are all just smoking all the time. Like
what I love is that a lot of it is really light-hearted hijinks, but then every now and then someone just whips out a automatic pistol and just shoots point blank at their enemies.
Yeah, like, and people are getting like killed in this as well. Like that's the thing, and like I think that there's so much of it, like it's got such a sense of weight to it, and I think that that's something that animation is always struggling with. Like there's like when the assassins attack them in the hotel room and they like burst out of the window and then land in the car, and like the car like crunches under their weight and stuff, and like every little bit of it where something should be heavy or something should be overbalancing and stuff, it always is, and there's always like they're always knocking.
When Lupin has sabotaged the cars of the security from the casino, or the bad boys, and like there's like axles are just falling off and everything like slides to a halt. Like it just feels like, I'm not an expert, but I feel like that's what that would do if someone cut the axle off your car. That just looks right. Like I just love it. And it's also it's the fluidity with which you can have a scene like that and then instantly be followed by like two men in a mini with cash stacked up to their eyes. And it just works. It uses the elasticity of cartoon logic so well.
Yeah, it really, like when he just suddenly drives up the wall and it's like, yeah, okay, well, like these cars are so realistically drawn and the way that they fall apart is so realistic, and then he's just all like, I'm going to drive full speed up that fucking wall. And it's all like, sure, of course you are. Like that's absolutely fine with me. But yeah, like I just think that all in, like there is so much to love in this movie. Like it's beautiful. The animation is spectacular. The characters are excellent. It's got such an old-fashioned adventure feel to it. And like it's funny. You
might get a lot of people online saying, don't watch dub versions. And I know for a lot of anime that can be true, but genuinely, if you don't speak the original language, this is such a great way to enjoy it. The voice cast really gave it their all. It's really fun performances, really good voices, none of them annoying. They're fully committed. Like the villains are some of the best parts about this. They really go all in. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to address the sub supremacy thing. Like everybody thinks that the anime community is like subtitles are the best because you want to watch it in its original form, and that's fine. I mean, I personally like to look at the images on the screen when I'm watching a movie rather than reading. And so if I can get a good quality dub, I'm fine with that. And like the Studio Ghibli ones are generally really good. And I will happily do that. I think that for me, the thing is that it generally is just like, what form did I see it in originally? So like I can't handle any of the Akira dubs, even the better newer ones, because I watched that subtitled originally, and so to me those are the voices. Similarly, like I cannot handle any of the subtitled versions of Dragon Ball Z, because for me Dragon Ball Z is the Cartoon Network broadcast with the English voices, and with a lot of the Studio Ghibli ones, a lot of them I watched originally the dubbed versions because they were what were available to me at the time when they started being released on DVD. And I think personally that there is no, I don't have any sort of horse in that race. Don't get me wrong, a bad dub is awful, but like I've also seen some really, really badly translated subtitles, and nobody ever seems to talk about that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very much a case by case basis, but I will generally default to whatever I initially experienced, and with this, I think that the dub is excellent. It's really funny.
Listen, so to sum up, if you are a fan and you haven't rewatched this in ages, I mean, Patrick probably wants to tell you, but I feel like it's held up. And if you're like me and you had no exposure to this franchise, I can't speak for the rest of the franchise, but this particular installment, such a good way to spend an afternoon. It's fun. You just leave it smiling. There is so much attention to craft and detail. It just feels like something that have been made by people that A, have pride in it, and B, are having a lot of fun making it. And like you said, like this is a genre I really feel like we need more of. Actually, I was gonna say something, but I will leave that till what's really good.
It's a solid 10 out of 10 for me. And I honestly think
what I would say as well is I had to watch it on a dodgy site because in the UK you only seem to be able to rent it. I couldn't find it anywhere. Crunchyroll advertises it, but then when you go to watch it, you can't click the link. So I had to find a dodgy site. But I mean, I would even say honestly, this is not a joke. If you have to rent it, if you prefer for the money to go to the creators, it's good money to rent. Like I honestly don't think you would spend your money badly if you rented it or even buy the DVD. It's
what I would say is it's $3.99 to rent on Amazon, and it's well worth that. It's certainly more worth that than most things you would spend £4 on. 100%. It's got an absolutely beautiful Blu-ray transfer, and the Blu-ray version has some really lovely extras, including some interviews and some original trailers from different countries, which are really... Now, obviously, I guess the thing that I would have to say here is I don't know how many Blu-ray versions there are or which one I have, so it might be that there's like mine's in a cardboard slipcase, so it might be a special edition of some kind. But what I would say is that like the Ghibli Blu-ray transfers are gorgeous and well worth investing in if you love physical media and this kind of movie.
Nice. Okay, so with all that being said, it's the Matrix Minute. I don't know why I did it spooky. It's not a horror film, but it's the Matrix Minute.
It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix Minute. Woo!
That's the Matrix Minute.
I don't know, man. I've completely run out of things to say about the Matrix. I'm struggling with this. I thought this was going to be fun, but I like the Matrix. The Matrix stuff was organic, and now that there's pressure on me to think about the Matrix, I'm all like, oh man, I don't know what I think about the Matrix.
Okay, well I'll take this, and I'm going to come back to this. I'll come back to this theme, this idea, later on in what's really good. But I kind of hate, and I don't like using the word hate. It's a strong word, and I think people misuse it. But I genuinely hate how unimaginative the current movie industry is, and that's every facet of the scripts, the actual production, and one thing that I think really is terrible nowadays is marketing. We have this if it's everything from the trailer that shows you every part of the film because they don't want to kill any kind of ambiguity, they want to make sure that you like it, or if it's the fact that all trailers have the same format now. It's like there'll be a shot of someone's face and then that Inception, like I hate it. It's the same. It doesn't matter what genre you do, everyone does the same trailer. And so my Matrix Minute is talking about the fact that when this came out, there were just posters with the Matrix code on them that just said, "What is the Matrix?" No studio would ever do that today. And it was such a slow. They were drip feeding us information. There was a website where if you spent hours on it unlocking certain codes, you would get 10-second clips of the trailer. That still didn't answer the question, what is the website was called whatisthematrix.com, and yet you'd spend hours on there and be no closer to the answer. And I love that. Like by the time it came out, I mean, I wasn't able to see it at the time, but by the time it came out, I was so hyped for that film. I had no idea what it was about, and I just love that. And I really think there's so many things that the industry needs to do to get it get itself back to what it was. But for me, that is an essential component that you need to start taking chances. You need to make people intrigued. There are so many films that I think have flopped, and the funny thing is they don't deserve to flop, but they didn't appeal to the audience they should have appealed to because they were too scared to accurately portray what the film was.
And I think, and that's such a major problem. Like, if you think about the best, like there was a time there was a little period there where like alternate reality games were everywhere. Like there was one for Lost where you had to solve riddles to track down bits of a video that I gave you an extra Dharma orientation movie and stuff. And like there was a Halo 2 one, and that shit was so cool. Like, I do understand that at this stage, I think there's a scenario where then there were less people using the internet to do this stuff, so it was like a little journey we all went on. And I imagine that now you'd be all like, "Hey, we've put up this puzzle," and 14 minutes later, people would be like, "Solved it, done."
Yeah.
Because there's so many people now with their eyes on that stuff working towards it. But I think you're 100% right that like it's so generic. It feels like now, like in the same way that these companies seem to think that AI is going to allow them to predict what people will want, rather than understanding that what people want is things that they don't know they want yet. Like the most successful things ever are never the 14th fucking sequel in a franchise. Maybe an end game. Do you know what I mean? But like next time there's a big cultural shift, next time there's a big moment, next time there's something like The Matrix that comes out of nowhere and changes the whole industry, it will not be from some fucking major franchise that we've already seen 100 times. It just won't.
Well, look, so the two films I can think of recently that are an example of what you said, Get Out by Jordan Peele. No one saw that coming. It made 10 times its budget, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're both films by essentially first-time creators, shoestring budget. And look what they did. They organically connected with people. And it was a big part of that was, thank God, it's not IP that's being reused for the 1,000th time. It's a new story. I haven't seen this before. I haven't seen this cast before.
And we've said this a bunch of times, but yeah, like it is wild that the studio behind Barbie has responded to that by being all like, "Guess they want more action figures." It's like, no, what people want is standalone stories that are interesting.
Yeah.
Fucking, it's not the same shit we've seen 1,000 times. But yeah, like, just quickly though, what I would like to say is one thing that I did notice is that, you know, the Animatrix, one of the studios that did one of those shorts is Studio Madhouse, and they are just fucking awesome. They're an amazing anime studio. They did One Punch Man season 1, so yeah, it's really, really, really cool seeing that's one of the places that they came from. I've googled a Matrix minute, so I've literally just been looking at my other screen, being all like, "What can I say about the fucking Matrix? What can I say that I haven't already said?" So what's really good? So the other day, Logan was like, "Hey, do you want to watch this thing with me? It's called Fryrun Beyond Journey's End." And it's about, and I was all like, "Sure, whatever." It's like a new anime series. Logan's watching it, so we sat down to watch it. And it started off, and the premise was all like, they're like this group of adventurers. It's like a fantasy Lord of the Rings world. And they're on their way home in the first episode after saving the world from the Demon Lord. So, like, they've just finished the adventure. And they're all, like, going back home, and they have, like, a party, and the king makes a statue of them. And then they have this conversation where one of them's all like, "Hey, maybe I'll get a job. I guess, what are we going to fucking do?" Like, you know what I mean? And one of them's all like, "I'm going to coast on the acclaim of being one of the heroes who saved the world." And it's like really, it was like a really cute premise. It was very funny for the first couple of minutes. And one of the characters is like an elf, so she doesn't age. And she's all like, "Oh, you know," they're watching this meteor shower, and she's all like, "Oh, you know, this isn't a great place to watch it from. Maybe next time the meteor shower comes around, you know, we can watch it from this place that I know that's really nice." And one of the other guys is all like, "Dude, the meteor shower's once every like 50 years. And she's all like, yeah, I'll nip back by, you know." And then, like, in the next scene, there's like a montage of her like going about her business, going to a couple of shops and stuff. And then she goes back to the town, and for her, and 50 years have passed, which for her is no time because she's immortal.
Yeah.
And all her friends are old. And it was so sad. Like, it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. And then, like, it gave me this deep existential I was all like, I'm always going 6 months without seeing my friends, right? How many 6 months have I got left in me, really? 80? You know what I mean? Like, and I just had this moment where I was all like, oh my God, time is passing by. And what if I don't appreciate the people that I love? And then they're old and they die, and I'm old and I die. And the episode ended, it was like 20 minutes long, and I turned around and Logan was just crying so much, and I was just crying so much. And then we like both sat there and we tried to talk about it, and I just burst into tears again. Like, I'd managed to like compose myself and like wipe down my face. And then I was all like, "Oh, that bit though," and then just started to cry again. And it was just too much. It was unbearable and overwhelming. And then I was all like, "Logan, I was not ready for that." And he was like, "Fuck, no was I, man. I thought it was going to be fun." And then in the end, I was all like, "Do you want to watch the next episode?" And he was all like, "Nah, man, maybe tomorrow. Maybe." He was like, "Maybe we need to pace it out like once a week or something." Like, because and it was just, it was this, it was incredible how quickly it got me invested in the characters and made me feel like I cared about them. And it was also just this, like, one of the things I said to Logan was, I'm used to crying at the last episode of things. You know what I mean? But I'm never crying at the first episode. That's not the vibe. Like, it was unbelievable how, like, melancholy and like, and it, for something that was like an animated show about a fantasy party of elves and stuff, it was so real and it hit me so deep. Like, it was like somebody punching me in the fucking gut. But it was beautiful and amazing. So I would recommend it, but I would say go into it aware that it's going to be a lot. It's overwhelming and upsetting. And I think that some warning would be nice, because fucking hell, it really hit me out of nowhere and was not like the nicest thing in the world. I also watched the end of Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War Core 2. It's 7 out of 10. It's all right. Cool. There's some stuff that wasn't in the manga that's kind of cool, and then there's a lot of stuff that's got all the same problems that Bleach always has. So, you know what you're getting. If you've already watched Bleach, you probably get more Bleach, and maybe you'll be all like, yeah, Bleach is fine. But yeah, I don't know. It was a bit disappointing. What have you been watching?
So I finally caught Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I've seen a lot of advertising behind the scenes stuff that I really like the look of. So one thing is that producer, writer Seth Rogen wanted, because it's the first, like, it's kind of insane to think about, but it's the first film in the franchise's history that actually has teenagers starring as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what he did was he basically had them in a booth together. And I think initially it was very tightly scripted. Then there was a day when he saw them messing around in between scenes and was like, oh, that's the magic right there. So he just basically would run in and be like, in this scene, this thing happens, riff. And sometimes it wouldn't work, and sometimes you get magic. And you can tell the ones where they've kept the ones where it worked, because they're just, what I love about them is that they're kind of losers. And it takes complete sense, because they're basically constantly looking up at the outside world and wishing they could be part of it. And Splinter was like, no, you're 4 giant turtles. People would hate you. Like, don't do that. That's insane. So they're constantly longing to be part of the world. And there's also this thing where, you know, they're teens. So there's a moment where Raph is like, I love you guys, but if I have to die in a room with only you guys, I will kill myself. I can't do this. You know, he's just like, I need to know other people, which is, you know, a very realistic thing. And so, like, one thing I love is that, you know, this franchise has been going on for like 30 years, and it's always Shredder. And so for the first time, Shredder's not the villain, and it's a villain played by Ice Cube. And I love it. They've just let Ice Cube be fully Ice Cube. Like, he's just doing the lingo and he's doing his Ice Cube voice. His performance is so good, though. At no point do you ever feel like it's like an actor. You just buy into him being the character. And I think it might age it slightly because there's a lot of current slang and stuff, but it's just charming. The kids are brilliant. Splinter is played by Jackie Chan. Like,
nice.
And also, it's not the thing where it's been in the other adaptations where either he was formerly a human judo expert who got turned into the rat, or a rat whose master was an expert. He's just some rat, and when he was a rat, all the other animals hated him. And so the only reason they know kung fu is because he realized the outside world is going to hate these guys and they need to protect themselves if anything ever happens. He basically was like able to get a VHS of old 80s kung fu and just train them.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Like, it's great. The whole cast is fantastic. It's really well paid. The animation, I think you've probably seen by now, it's very Spider-Verse influence. It's very kinetic, and it's got this kind of organic feel. It's like almost cell shaded. Yeah, just a really fun, really good time. Great cast. Those kids are all going to be stars. They're fantastic. There's one scene when they're like doing their pitch of how they would appeal to the outside world when they debut. And it's great because essentially, like I said, they've only ever lived in the sewers and overheard humans talk. So they don't know the context for a lot of slang. And they're just like, They just like going, I want a bacon, egg, and cheese. Yeah, bro, I'll get a bacon, egg, and cheese. Like they don't know what that means. They just heard it, when they've been beneath the bodega. So there's just a bunch of geeks trying to be cool. And I think it's a great take on the Turtles. I loved it. It is a lot of fun. I recommend it.
Yeah, I will actually watch that. That sounds great.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Also, finally, well, not finally, it's finally here. Loki. Have you watched it yet?
I did. I watched it last night after I watched the Castle of
I
Caligari.
really enjoyed it.
I mean, Tom Hiddleston's great, isn't he?
He's
like,
so good.
It's the same thing it always is, where I was a bit like I'm not super invested in the plot. It was a bit like timey-wimey stuff going on, and I was a bit like, I don't really understand what's. And like, if it was the first season, I might be all like, oh, maybe this is going to come together. But based on what happened at the end of the first season, I'm all like, I don't think they have any idea how any of this shit works. But like, as a vehicle for silly jokes, though, it was great.
Just simultaneously having a conversation in the past and in the future, and then having information slowly come to him in his memory whilst we see it happen present time. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that in fairness, the whole bit with Ouroboros was really funny. I thought he was great, and I really really liked the bit where they first met him, and Mobius was like, didn't remember him, and Tom Hiddleston's like visual joy of Mobius being in an awkward situation was really infectious. I thought that was it was really charming. I think the thing is that like Tom Hiddleston as Loki is fucking excellent, isn't he?
Yeah.
And so like I feel like you could be like, it's Loki goes to Subway and buys a medium-sized sandwich, and it would probably still be good to watch because he's just so good.
I like about it, right? Apart from the cast were all fantastic. Tell me if this is just me. Doesn't it look great? And there's been so many Marvel films recently. They're like, this was 200 million. And you're like, how? How did that? But like, how did Ant-Man Quantumania possibly cost more than $100 million?
Yeah.
It looks garbage. And like, once again, I do apologize because I know so many visual effects and special effects artists are put under so much crunch and pressure to deliver these things every summer. But maybe this is the key. Maybe I don't know if Loki costs more or less than those, but it feels like a studio of people were given time to make everything work. And on top of that, the actual offices of the TVA, I don't know how much is CG and how much is set work, but it looks like they're in sets. It looks like they're in physical environments that are tangible, that are crafted. It just looks great.
And it's got that kind of retro brutalist architecture is like it's got a real look to it, which I really love. One thing I would say is if you go into this and you're all like, hey, I watched Loki when it came out and I pretty much remember it, and then you watch the recap, it's not enough. Like there were several people in this who I was all like, I don't remember who that lady is. Like I can't remember.
I'm glad you said that because I thought my original plan was to marathon the original and I just didn't time it properly. So I was like, okay, I'll just jump into it. And then, like you said, as soon as that recap ended, I was like, thank goodness they did that because I'd forgotten a lot of this.
Yeah, like that was just enough. And like, broadly speaking, I remember what happened to Loki in the first series, but like some of the supporting characters, I was just all like, who's that? I'm not sure. I think the only supporting character I really remember is Sylvie, and obviously she's barely in this episode.
Nice
and like it's
product placement for no reason.
Yeah, it set up some nice little mysteries. It gave us lots and lots of FaceTime with the characters who are good, who I actually like. Which again, I felt like there were times in the first series where it was a bit like, why not just have Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson spend more time together? They're great. Yeah. They've got a really easy chemistry, and this gave them a lot of time together. The gag about the time slipping looking horrible was really funny. I thought that was really like it was really well delivered. But yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, like, again, it's like it doesn't give me any faith. Like I've got this strong feeling that's a bit like, unless Tom Hiddleston is like gonna Hugh Jackman this and be all like, I'm just gonna keep doing it forever. Yeah. I feel like his contract will have to expire soon, and then they'll lose Loki, and it's a bit like, it's kind of like when Guardians 3 was good, and I was all like, yeah, this is great. Like, but it doesn't really give me any positive feelings about the rest of the MCU because it's great because
it's its own entity at the moment. I'm not judging potentially what the MCU could be post this. I think this is the one good thing they've got going. I hope I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like it's funny because this ends with the line a Kevin Feige production, and as I watched it, I feel like Kevin Feige's never even seen this show. And then it's all the better for it. It feels like it's completely free of his hands, and I think it's benefited that. So
Yeah, the Marvels is out soon, isn't it?
yeah, that's going to be the judge, I guess.
I probably won't see that. Although I did enjoy Captain Marvel a lot. I quite liked.
I don't love it, and I really like Brie Larson, and I liked Ms. Marvel, but just considering how much movie tickets are nowadays, I don't.
Yeah,
I just don't get my money's worth. And also, if Black Panther's anything to go by, I can wait 3 months. This will be in Disney Plus.
Yeah, it'll be on Disney Plus in 20 minutes. And the other thing is that there's because the fourth Neon Genesis Evangelion film was released during the pandemic, they didn't do cinema showings for it, and they've announced they're doing them this month. So now I'm like, well, I better go see that because I'd love to see that on a cinema screen. And then there's kind of a level at which, it's a bit expensive, but I'd really, really like to see that Taylor Swift film. I'm not sure. It's 20 quid though. No, it's a cinema release, and it was it's £20 for a ticket, including at the Broadway, where tickets are usually way cheaper than that. Yeah. I assume because they're just people will pay it.
Money, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems to be sold out in most places. So I was a bit like, oh, well, maybe I will pay 20. But the other thing is,
there's been loads of TikToks about it where there's people that work at movie theaters who've been saying, I've been getting loads of calls from Taylor Swift fans, and it's like, it's clear they've never been to a movie theater before because people are calling and asking about the etiquette, and they're like, these Taylor Swift popcorn buckets, can we take them with us? And the staff are like, yes, don't leave your food here. Of course you can take it with you.
Yeah, it's also, but there's also a level at which I'm a little bit worried because it's like 3 hours long. It's like a full concert just recorded and put on the cinema screen, and it's like, I don't think Beth's going to want to sit through 3 hours of Taylor Swift with me. She's lovely and she cares about me, and she hates Taylor Swift way less than she used to due to me just listening to Taylor Swift loudly all the time. But I'm not sure about if she's going to be if she's going to be up for this. And then obviously then it's a bit like, I can't be a 38-year-old man alone at the Taylor Swift film. Do you know what I mean? I can't just be sat there at the back all like, I sure do like Taylor Swift. Hello, fellow kids. I don't want to be. I don't want to look like a fucking nonce. Yeah. So I might wait until it's available to watch at home.
That'd be advisable. Yeah.
If anybody
mentioned before we go, sorry to cut you off. Two YouTubers. One, I don't know if you know Patrick H. Willems. Great YouTuber. If you don't follow him. Does some of the best film analysis. And what about him is, Patrick is not pretentious at all. He is unashamedly a fan of. Okay, there's a slight level of pretension, but the reason I say that is because he wears the things that he loves on his sleeve, and it's things like Mission Impossible, things that other people are very pretentious about, i.e., big Hollywood blockbusters. He loves them and is passionate about them, and he's not ashamed to talk about that. And his new video is kind of talking about the death of Hollywood and the state we're in now, and what has contributed to that. Is it the Marvel system? Is it these executives taking over that don't really know anything about film? They just care about, slashing profits. And he ends with this kind of really big speech that I think is worth watching. I think you'll enjoy it a lot more if you watch the entire video, but I'd watch it just for that speech. And then another TV show, another YouTube show / podcast is It Was a Shit Show. And It Was a Shit Show is a fantastic series where they delve into the making of films that are sometimes spectacular disasters, and sometimes they did well despite the production, but it's just great. He does an insane amount of research. He's got a great voice to listen to. And this one, he talks about The Fugitive, which I never knew, but The Fugitive is one of those films that has no right to be anywhere near as good as it was.
Yeah.
Because it was just accident after accident after accident. The funny thing is, it ended up getting an Oscar nomination for Best Cinematography, but the cinematographer hated the director and literally called the studio and was like, I will give you back the money if you let me leave. And they were like, you can't. So everyone, Harrison Ford was just dashing bits of the dialogue aside and making stuff up on the fly. And Julianne Moore was really excited and told all her friends, I'm going to be in the film with Harrison Ford. And then they cut all her scenes. So it's just one of those things where
brutal.
Yeah, it was just brutal for everyone involved, but it stands the test of time to this day as an amazing film. And the reason I mention this again is because it ends with another amazing speech where the host basically talks about the fact that The Fugitive is unfortunately one of those films that could not be made today. It's a mid-budget action thriller starring mostly character actors that is not well, I mean, it's based on existing IP, but I mean, could you imagine going to a studio nowadays and going, hey, there was this really popular show in the 70s, and I would like to get some of the highest paid actors in the world to star in an adaptation of it? They would laugh you out of the studio. You couldn't make it.
Yeah, well, I think that about Mission Impossible. Like, can you imagine now going to a studio and being all like, I was thinking that we could pay $100 million to an adaptation of this 60s TV spy show. It's fucking insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, like, in fairness, I think I was thinking that we should do more YouTube recommendations. So, as a counterpoint to Daniel's take, I think Patrick X. Williams is a bit of a twat. Like, I do, like, so he delivers interesting information that I want to hear, but he's got this slightly "I'm so fucking clever" vibe about him that I find a little bit slimy and irritating. But his videos are good. What I would say is that this week Dan Olsen from Folding Ideas put up a video about the GameStop meme stock, like how the value of GameStop went up, and it is unbelievable.
Have you seen a movie about that yet?
No, but you know what? Having watched Dan Olsen's video on it, I don't feel the need to watch anything else. Like, he's that kind of creator. He did one last year about NFTs. He's, in fairness, for my money, along with Super Eye Patch Wolf, I think Folding Ideas is the best channel on YouTube. It's consistently the best written, best produced, most interesting. His Flat Earth video is fucking incredible.
Cool. I'll put
I'd very much
all of these in the description below. So anyone who wants to know any of the channels we're talking about, I will put the home page on the bottom. Yeah, and the other recommendation I would give on YouTube, which I've been watching loads of recently, is so there's this guy called Miles Bonsignore. He used to be an editor at the Try Guys channel, and he would like appear in their videos as like a side person on the podcast, and he was consistently so much funnier than everybody else in their videos. So he's left and he's started his own channel, which has only got a few videos on it as of now. But if you go back, there's some videos he did like 5-6 years ago, which are these kind of like documentary style shorts, and they are so funny. Yeah. And he also does a podcast called Perfect Person, where people like ring in and ask him for advice. And he gives advice over the phone, which is just hilarious. So yeah, I would recommend. I love Miles. Like I aspire to be as funny as he is. Cool.
That's my dream.
So this whole time because I haven't thought. I honestly enjoyed Lupin so much. I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to follow this up because it's my turn to pick. And it's not super geeky. I guess it's adjacent to what we deal with. But you know what? I would just like to watch some Simpsons.
Okay, yeah. Which episodes?
Yeah. I'm thinking this is my thing because I'm like season 8 or 9 is what I'm kind of sitting on.
When is Homer's Enemy? When's Homer's Enemy? When's You Only Move Twice? Because goddamn,
like You Only Move Twice is season 8. Isn't Homer's Enemy season 10? Because I feel like it's the only good episode in season 10.
Is it? I thought it was earlier than that. Oh, I can't Google it. I've already got Chrome open.
No, season 8. So let's watch season 8. Let's watch
Okay, yeah. Let's watch the whole of season 8 of The Simpsons.
Honestly, I'm very happy to. I feel like we should watch the whole of season 8 of The Simpsons.
I'll watch that over the course of this week. I'd love that. That sounds fantastic. Because, you know, it's
twice. Because if that's the same season, then we are really in for a treat. It's the second episode of season 8. We're in for a treat.
Yeah.
There you go. Season 8. All right. So thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Send it to your friends. If you have any ideas for things we should watch, Patrick will not honor them, but I will read them. So
and if you're a sponsor who wants sponsored videos of the level of sheer quality that you've seen today, then I will happily produce those for you. And if you're paying us, I'll say nice things. I'll be like positive and stuff. I'll do. I mean, not that I wasn't positive about Fanta.
Of course,
like you know, like that's a
positive.
us
and have Patrick bake nice videos about you. Panelsandbars@gmail.com. Once again, thank you to everyone for watching. If you're watching this, you're not subscribed, it takes 2 seconds. Press the bell, subscribe, hit that bell. You get notifications whenever all of our fantastic content comes out, because we are the best geek channel on YouTube right now. So yeah, thank you. We'll see you next time when we talk about
click that
season 8
subscribe button.
season.
It's easier than jamming your thumb up your butthole.
Bye everyone.